The massive ship hung in the darkness above Earth like a metal mountain. Its hull gleamed silver and blue under the light of distant stars. On the bridge stood a woman with pale skin and strange golden eyes. Her name was Zara, but the humans around her had once known her as Zoe Dot. Admiral Jake Morrison stood beside her, looking out at the planet below. His face was hard and weathered from many years of war. Behind them, Dr. Lisa Park worked at a glowing control panel. Her fingers moved quickly across the alien symbols that covered the surface. Zara touched a crystal device on her wrist. The bridge filled with images of burning cities and broken ships. Earth was dying. The Corvani Empire had returned after 15 years of silence. This time they came not to conquer, but to destroy every human life in the galaxy. Jake watched the images with growing anger. He had seen too many good people die in the past months. Colony after colony had fallen to the alien weapons. Earth itself would be next, unless something changed soon. Lisa looked up from her work with worry in her dark eyes. The numbers on her screen told a story no one wanted to hear. Earth had maybe 3 days before the main Corvani fleet arrived. 3 days to find a miracle, or watch their world burn. Zara closed her eyes and remembered the small town in Colorado, where she had lived for so many years. She remembered Danny Foster, who had taught her to fix engines and drink coffee. She remembered the way humans laughed together even when times were hard. These memories gave her strength now. The communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in the harsh language of the Corvani Empire. Zara listened, and her face grew pale. The voice belonged to her brother Prince Daron. He was coming too. Kill her. Jake saw her reaction and put a hand on her shoulder. He did not understand the alien words, but he could read pain in any language. Zara had saved his life many times in recent weeks. She had shown them how to fight ships they could never defeat alone. Now she looked like a woman carrying the weight of 2 worlds. The humans on the bridge worked with quiet determination. They came from different countries and backgrounds, but war had made them family. Captain Amy Chen checked weapon systems while Commander Pete Martinez studied enemy movement patterns. Engineer Danny Foster made sure their alien technology stayed working. Danny had been the first to learn Zara's true identity 3 months ago. Her ship had been damaged in a fight with Corvani scouts. While he helped repair the engines, he noticed symbols that matched nothing in human databases. When he asked about them, Zara finally told him the truth. She was the daughter of the Corvani Emperor. 15 years ago, she had refused to help destroy a peaceful alien race. Her father had called her weak and cast her out. Her ship had crashed on Earth and she had decided to stay hidden among humans. But hiding was no longer possible. The Corvani fleet was too large and too powerful for Earth to fight alone. Zara had revealed herself to human leaders and offered them something incredible. She claimed to know about an ancient weapon that could stop the invasion. The weapon was not what anyone expected. It was not a gun, or a bomb, or a ship. It was something called the Heart of Unity. According to Zara, it was an artifact that could turn the thoughts and feelings of many people into real power. Lisa had spent weeks studying the device. It looked like a crystal sphere covered in flowing metal patterns. When humans touched it, the patterns would glow with soft blue light. But that was all they had seen so far. No one knew how to make it work. Jake walked to the viewing window and stared down at Earth. He could see the lights of cities that still lived and fought. Millions of people looked up at the stars and hoped for salvation. Some of them probably cursed the aliens who had brought this war to their home. But Jake knew the truth was more complex. Zara had not brought the war. She had tried to prevent it 15 years ago. Now she was the only reason Earth had any chance at all. Without her knowledge of Corvani tactics and technology, the human fleet would have been destroyed. Weeks ago, the bridge door opened and more officers entered. They carried reports from across the solar system. Mars' colony had gone silent. The outer mining stations were abandoned. Earth's defensive fleet was down to less than 200 ships facing an enemy force 10 times larger. Zara read the reports with growing sadness. Each number represented lives lost and families destroyed. She had seen this pattern before, when her people conquered other worlds. The Corvani way was total destruction of any species that resisted their rule. Amy Chen approached with new intelligence. Data Corvani. Advanced scouts had been spotted near Jupiter. They would reach Earth orbit in less than 48 hours. The main fleet would arrive one day later. After that, there would be no more chances. Pete Martinez spread tactical maps across a table. He showed how human ships had tried every known strategy against Corvani forces. Nothing worked against their energy shields. Human weapons simply could not penetrate the alien defenses. Even nuclear warheads had no effect. Danny joined the group around the tactical display. His clothes were stained with grease, and his hands showed burns from working on alien machinery, but his eyes were bright with determination. He had spent his whole life fixing broken things. Now he was trying to fix a broken world. Zara looked at each face around the table. These humans had accepted her despite everything. They trusted her, even though her own people wanted to kill them all. Jake had made her an admiral in the human fleet. Lisa shared her scientific knowledge freely. Amy followed her orders in battle without question. The weight of their trust was almost too much to bear. Zara knew that the heart of unity was their only hope, but she also knew that using it would require something no military leader wanted to ask of their people. It would require them to open their minds completely to each other and to her. The artifact worked by connecting the thoughts and emotions of everyone who touched it. In ancient times, her people had used it to build their great empire, but they had lost the ability to activate it as they became more cold and distant from each other. Humans were different. They formed bonds with strangers and cared about people they had never met. They would die for ideas and fight for the weak. This strange nature might be exactly what the heart of unity needed to work again. But first, they had to survive long enough to try. The Corvani advance force was already spreading through the outer system. Soon Prince Darren would arrive with orders to capture or kill his sister. The real battle was about to begin. Jake looked at Zara with trust in his eyes. Lisa returned to her work with renewed focus. Amy began planning impossible tactical maneuvers. Danny headed back to the engine room to keep their alien hybrid ship running. Zara stood alone for a moment, looking out at the planet. She had learned to call home. Earth had given her 15 years of peace and friendship. Now it was time to give something back. The heart of unity pulsed with soft light in its protective case nearby. Tomorrow would bring fire and death to the system, but it would also bring the chance to prove that some bonds were stronger than blood, and some weapons were powered by hope instead of hate. The memory came to Zara as she stood in the engine room watching Danny work. 15 years ago she had been Princess Zara Veltar of the mighty Corvani Empire. Her father, Emperor Kale, ruled over 100 worlds with absolute power. But even emperors made mistakes. The Hellene people had been peaceful farmers, living on a small green world. They had no weapons and no desire for war. When Corvani ships arrived, they offered friendship and trade. Emperor Kale saw only weakness that needed to be removed. Young Princess Zara had watched from the command ship as her father ordered the attack. Hellene cities burned under energy weapons. Millions died in the first hour. The survivors were hunted down and killed like animals. By the end of the day, an entire species was extinct. Zara had spoken against the slaughter. She called it murder and refused to celebrate the victory. Her father grew angry at her words. He said she was weak like her dead mother. The argument lasted for hours until finally he made his choice. The princess was given a small ship and enough supplies for 1 month. She was told to leave Corvani's space and never return. If she came back, she would be executed as a traitor. Her own brother Duran had watched in silence. As she was cast out into the void, her ship had been damaged by debris during her escape. The navigation system failed, and she drifted for weeks before crashing on Earth. The impact destroyed most of her technology, but left her alive and stranded on an unknown world. Danny looked up from the engine he was repairing and saw sadness in her golden eyes. He had heard parts of her story before, but never all of it. The quiet mechanic from Colorado had become one of the few humans who truly understood what she had lost. He remembered the day, 3 years ago, when a strange woman had answered his job posting. She called herself Zoe and claimed to have experience with advanced electronics. Her knowledge was incredible, but she never talked about her past. Danny had not cared about mysteries then. Zoe had been the best worker he ever hired. She could fix anything and seemed to understand machines better than their own makers. She lived alone in a small apartment and kept to herself most of the time, but slowly, Danny had drawn her into his circle of friends. They would meet at the local diner after work to drink coffee and talk. Zoe asked endless questions about human customs and history. She seemed fascinated by simple things like birthday parties and family reunions. Danny thought she might be from another country with very different traditions. The truth had been much stranger. Princess Zara had spent 15 years learning what it meant to be human. She worked ordinary jobs and paid taxes and worried about rent money. She made friends who cared about her problems and celebrated her successes. For the first time in her life, she was part of something larger than herself that was built on choice rather than fear. Humans included her in their groups simply because she was there and willing to help. No one cared about her bloodline or her status. They judged her only by her actions. Now, Danny watched her face as she remembered those peaceful years. The woman he had known as Zoe was still there beneath the alien princess. She still laughed at his jokes and worried about doing the right thing. War had not changed the person she had become on Earth. Dr. Lisa Park entered the engine room, carrying a data tablet covered in alien symbols. She had been working day and night to understand Corvani technology. Her latest discovery was both promising and terrifying. The heart of Unity was far more powerful than anyone had imagined. Lisa showed them scans of the artifact that revealed its true nature. The crystal sphere was not just a weapon but a consciousness amplifier. It could link the minds of thousands of people across vast distances. Ancient Corvani had used it to coordinate their entire civilization, but there was a catch that made the device almost useless to modern Corvani. It required complete trust and emotional openness between all users. The cold, efficient warriors of the current empire could not form the bonds needed to activate it. They had become too isolated and suspicious of each other. Humans were different, in ways that surprised even Zara. They formed friendships with strangers and adopted orphaned children from other species. Human soldiers would risk their lives to save enemies who surrendered. This strange compassion might be exactly what the heart needed. The tactical briefing began an hour later in the main conference room. Admiral Jake Morrison stood before a holographic display showing enemy positions throughout the solar system. The news was worse than anyone had hoped. Corvani advance forces were already inside the orbit of Mars. Captain Amy Chen reported on the latest battle near the asteroid belt. Human ships had managed to damage several enemy vessels, but the cost had been severe. They lost 3 destroyers and a cruiser, while barely scratching Corvani shields. At this rate, Earth would be defenseless in days. Commander Pete Martinez added, "Intelligence from captured Corvani, communications." Prince Duran himself was leading the advance fleet aboard the flagship Conquest of Worlds. His orders were clear and brutal. All human military forces were to be destroyed. All colonies were to be sterilized. Earth itself would be cracked open and left as a dead rock. Jake studied the tactical display with growing frustration. Every simulation showed the same result. Human weapons could not penetrate Corvani defenses. Even if they used every nuclear warhead on Earth, the enemy fleet would barely notice. Conventional warfare was hopeless against such technology. Zara stepped forward and placed her hand on the heart of Unity. The crystal sphere sat in a protective case at the center of the conference table. As her fingers touched its surface, the metal patterns began to glow with soft blue light. Everyone in the room could feel a strange tingling in their minds. She explained how the artifact worked, and what it could do for them. The heart would link their thoughts and emotions into a single unified force. Ships could move with perfect coordination. Weapons could strike with impossible accuracy. But most importantly, it would let them combine their will into something stronger than any technology. The cost would be total vulnerability. Everyone connected to the heart would share their deepest thoughts and feelings. There would be no secrets and no hiding from painful truths. Some people might not survive having their minds opened so completely to others. Danny was the first to volunteer. He stepped forward and placed his hand next to Zara's on the crystal surface. The patterns flowed faster and brighter as his thoughts joined with hers. He felt her memories of the burning Helleny world and her 15 years of exile. She felt his simple love for the friends who had become his chosen family. One by one, the others joined them. Jake added his determination to protect Earth, no matter the cost. Lisa brought her scientific curiosity and desire to understand the universe. Amy contributed her pilot skills and tactical instincts. Pete offered his intelligence training and protective nature. The heart of unity pulsed with growing power as more minds connected. Through its crystal structure, they could feel thousands of other humans throughout the fleet. Ship crews and civilians and soldiers all focused on the same desperate hope. They would not let their world die without a fight. But, even as the artifact awakened, Zara felt something troubling in its depths. The heart was responding to human minds, but it was also reaching out beyond them. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, it touched other thoughts. Cold alien minds that felt the disturbance and turned toward Earth with new interest. Prince Daron was coming with fire and death, but he was no longer the only threat approaching their small blue world. The heart of unity was broadcasting their location to beings that had slept for millennia. Ancient enemies of the Corvani Empire were beginning to stir. The weapon that might save humanity could also doom them all. But there was no choice now, except to move forward. Earth had perhaps 24 hours before the first attack. They would spend that time learning to fight, as one people with one will. The real test would come when Prince Darren arrived with his fleet of world killers. Zara looked around the room at faces she had learned to love. These humans had given her a home when her own people cast her out. Now she would give them the only weapon that might save their world, even if using it destroyed them all. The human fleet spread across space like scattered stars. 200 ships of every size and design hung in formation between Earth and the approaching enemy. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiance, watching his captains prepare for impossible battle. Each ship carried part of the Heart of Unity network. Crystal fragments had been distributed throughout the fleet, allowing thousands of minds to connect across the void. But the system was untested and fragile. One wrong move could shatter the link and leave them defenseless. Jake felt doubt creeping into his thoughts. He had spent 40 years in the military, fighting human enemies with human weapons. This alien technology felt wrong somehow. How could he trust his fleet to something he did not understand when the lives of 8 billion people hung in the balance? Through the heart connection he felt Zara respond to his worries. Her mind touched his with gentle reassurance. She had lived among humans long enough to understand their fears. The artifact was not a trap or a trick. It was simply a tool that worked differently than anything they had used before. Dr. Lisa Park worked frantically in the science bay trying to solve problems that kept appearing. The heart fragments were not perfect copies of the main device. Each one had slightly different properties that affected how minds connected through them. Some ship crews were linking smoothly, while others struggled with interference. Captain Amy Chen ran training exercises with the fighter squadrons. Her pilots were good, but they had never tried to fly in perfect synchronization before. The heart network wanted them to move as one organism, rather than individual ships. It felt strange and wonderful and terrifying all at once. On the engineering deck, Danny Foster checked systems that combined human and Corvani technology in ways that should not have worked. Zara had helped them integrate the alien components, but much of the process remained mysterious. They were flying ships that were part machine and part magic. Danny paused in his work to look out a viewing port at the stars. Somewhere out there, Prince Daron was approaching with enough firepower to crack planets. The advanced scouts had already reached the outer system. In a few hours, the real killing would begin. He thought about the woman he had known as Zoe and the princess she had revealed herself to be. Both versions were real, but neither was complete. Through the heart connection, he could feel her struggling with the weight of two identities. She was trying to save the people she loved while fighting the family that had cast her out. The first contact came at dawn, Earth time. Corvani scout ships dropped out of hyperspace near Jupiter and began scanning the inner system. Human long-range sensors detected their arrival immediately. The enemy had found them at last. Jake gave orders that spread instantly through the heart network. No ship would fire without his command. They needed to learn how well the connection worked before committing to battle. Every captain felt his thoughts and understood perfectly. The fleet moved with eerie precision toward the outer planets. Commander Pete Martinez coordinated intelligence gathering from his position on the command deck. Intercepted enemy communications revealed disturbing information. Prince Daron was not just leading a military expedition. He had been given full authority to negotiate with his sister before destroying her. The Corvani Emperor wanted his daughter back. After 15 years of exile, he was willing to forgive her rebellion if she would abandon the humans and return home. Pete could see how this news affected Zara through their mental link. Part of her still loved her father, despite everything he had done. The first skirmish happened near the asteroid belt when human patrol ships encountered Corvani destroyers. Captain Amy Chen led the attack with her fighter squadron. Through the heart network, she could feel the thoughts and intentions of every pilot under her command. The battle was unlike anything in human military history. Ships moved in perfect formation without radio commands. Weapons fired in coordinated patterns that no individual pilot could have planned. The human fighters fought like a single creature with many bodies. But the enemy was not defenseless. Corvani energy shields absorbed most of the damage while their return fire scattered the human formation. 3 fighters were destroyed before Amy ordered a retreat. The heart network carried the pain of those deaths to every connected mind. Jake felt the loss like physical wounds. Each dead pilot had been part of their growing unity. Through the heart, he had known their names and dreams and fears. Losing them was like losing pieces of his own soul. But the battle also proved that their strategy could work. Lisa analyzed the combat data with growing excitement. Human weapons had actually penetrated Corvani shields during moments of perfect coordination. The heart network had somehow synchronized their attack frequencies to exploit tiny gaps in enemy defenses. It was barely measurable, but it was real progress. The science officer began calculating how many ships they would need to concentrate fire on a single target. The numbers were daunting. Even with perfect coordination, it would take dozens of human vessels to destroy one Corvani destroyer. They were still vastly outgunned. But Zara had other ideas forming in her mind. The Heart of Unity was not just a coordination device. It was a consciousness amplifier that could affect any sufficiently complex mind. The artifact had influenced Corvani thoughts in ancient times. Perhaps it could do so again. She shared her plan through the network connection. Instead of simply coordinating human attacks, they could try to disrupt enemy crews. The heart might be able to plant doubts and fears in Corvani minds. It was dangerous and uncertain, but their situation was already desperate. Danny felt her intentions through their link and understood the risks. Using the heart as a mental weapon could damage or destroy the minds of anyone connected to it. They might save Earth, only to lose their own humanity in the process. But what choice did they have against such overwhelming force? The debate spread through the network as thousands of connected minds considered the options. Some people were terrified of the idea, while others embraced it completely. Jake found himself caught between his duty to protect Earth and his responsibility to the people under his command. The decision was made for them when Prince Duran arrived with the main Corvani fleet. Hundreds of massive warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Each vessel was larger than anything humans had ever built. Together they carried enough firepower to sterilize entire solar systems. Long-range scans revealed something that chilled every human heart. The enemy fleet included 3 planet killer ships designed specifically for destroying worlds. These massive vessels could crack the crust of any planet and leave it as burning rubble. Earth would not survive even one such attack. Prince Duran opened communication channels and demanded to speak with his sister. His image appeared on screens throughout the human fleet. He looked older than Zara remembered, but his eyes held the same cold intelligence. Behind him stood the bridge crew of his flagship, all watching with predatory anticipation. The Corvani prince offered terms that were generous by his people's standards. Zara could return home with full honors as heir to the empire. Her human friends would be allowed to live as servants in the royal household. Earth itself would be preserved as a garden world for the imperial family. All she had to do was surrender herself and order the human fleet to stand down. Prince Darren gave her 1 hour to decide. After that he would begin the systematic destruction of every human ship and colony. Earth would burn last so she could watch her adopted people die. Jake felt rage building in the heart network as thousands of minds reacted to the ultimatum. These humans would not beg for mercy from anyone. They had survived ice ages and wars, and plagues through determination and unity. Now they would stand together against the darkness one more time. Zara closed the communication channel and turned to face her human family. Through the heart connection she felt their absolute trust, despite the impossible odds. They believed in her completely, even though she had brought this war to their world. That trust was more precious than any royal bloodline. The princess, who had become a mechanic, stood before the people who had taught her about love and sacrifice. In 1 hour, Prince Duran would begin his attack. They had that long to prove that some bonds were stronger than blood, and some weapons were forged from hope rather than hate. The hour passed like a heartbeat. Prince Darren kept his word and began the attack exactly when promised. The Corvani fleet moved forward in formation that blocked out the stars. Energy weapons lit the darkness as the largest space battle in human history commenced. Admiral Jake Morrison felt every ship in his fleet through the heart network. 200 human vessels faced nearly 1,000 alien warships. The odds were hopeless by any rational measure. But humans had never been entirely rational when their families were threatened. The first wave of Corvani destroyers swept toward the human lines with weapons charging. Captain Amy Chen led her fighters in a desperate intercept course. Through the heart connection she felt the fear and determination of every pilot under her command. They flew toward certain death with steady hands. But something strange happened as the fighters approached their targets. The heart of unity pulsed with growing power. Thousands of human minds focused on a single thought. Protect Earth. Protect home. Protect the people we love. The crystal artifact responded to their unified will with energy that defied understanding. Amy felt her ship change as the heart awakened fully. Her weapons began firing with impossible accuracy. Her shields somehow deflected energy beams that should have vaporized her fighter. Around her, the other pilots experienced the same transformation. They were still human, but they had become something more. The Corvani destroyer captains watched in shock as human fighters penetrated their shields and disabled their weapons. Small craft that should have been destroyed instantly were dancing between energy beams like they could see the future. Several alien ships suffered critical damage before the humans withdrew. Prince Duran observed the battle from his flagship with growing concern. His intelligence reports had not prepared him for this level of human capability. The enemy was using technology that matched or exceeded Corvani science. Where had they acquired such weapons in only 15 years? Dr. Lisa Park monitored the heart network from her position on the science deck. The artifact was drawing power from sources she could not identify. Human brainwaves were somehow being converted into energy that enhanced their ships and weapons. The process should have been impossible, according to known physics, but the heart was not just affecting human vessels. Lisa detected strange readings from several Corvani ships as well. Their shield frequencies were fluctuating in patterns that matched the artifact pulse. Something was spreading through the enemy fleet like a virus of doubt. Commander Pete Martinez intercepted enemy communications that revealed growing problems aboard Corvani vessels. Some crew members were questioning their orders for the first time in generations. Others reported strange dreams about peaceful worlds and extinct species. The heart was touching alien minds despite their mental conditioning. Danny Foster worked desperately in the engine room to keep their hybrid systems functioning. The combination of human and Corvani technology was being pushed beyond all design limits, but somehow the machinery held together as if the heart was willing it to work. Through his connection to the network, Danny felt Zara struggling with the power flowing through her. As the primary focus for the artifact she was experiencing the thoughts and emotions of thousands of people simultaneously. The mental strain was enormous, but she refused to let go of the connection. The second wave of attacks came from Corvani, cruisers equipped with planet-cracking weapons. These massive ships could destroy continents with single shots. Jake ordered his heavy destroyers to intercept them before they reached Earth orbit. It was a suicide mission disguised as strategy, but the Heart Network had other plans. As human ships approached the enemy cruisers, something unprecedented happened. The artifact reached across space and touched the minds of Corvani crew members. For the first time in centuries, they felt emotions other than duty and fear. Young alien officers remembered stories their grandparents had told about the old empire. Before the conquest machine there had been art and music and love among the Corvani people. The heart showed them glimpses of what they had lost when they chose power over compassion. Several Corvani ships simply stopped firing. Their crews argued among themselves as old memories surfaced. Some officers tried to continue the attack, while others questioned why they were destroying a beautiful world full of life. The unified alien advance became confused and hesitant. Prince Darren realized what was happening and ordered his flagship forward. Only the royal family had mental shields strong enough to resist the artifact influence. He would have to destroy his sister and her human allies personally. The massive ship Conquest of Worlds moved toward Earth with weapons charging. Jake felt the approach of the enemy flagship through the Heart Network. The ship was larger than anything in the human fleet and carried enough firepower to fight entire battles alone. But something was different about this vessel. It felt familiar in ways that made no sense. Zara gasped as recognition flooded through her mind. The Conquest of Worlds had been built using the same technology as the Heart of Unity. The ship hull contained crystalline matrices that could amplify psychic energy. Her brother was flying a weapon that might be vulnerable to the very power he was trying to destroy. The princess shared her discovery through the network instantly. If they could connect the heart directly to the enemy flagship, they might be able to influence its entire crew. But it would require someone to get close enough to establish physical contact. It was essentially a boarding mission against impossible odds. Danny volunteered before anyone else could speak. Through the heart connection, he felt Zara's terror at the thought of losing him. But he also felt her desperate need to end this war before more people died. Someone had to take the risk, and he was the best choice for the job. Amy assembled a strike team of her best pilots to escort Danny's boarding craft. They would punch through enemy defenses and get him close to the flagship hull. After that he would be on his own with only a fragment of the heart to guide him. The attack began, as every human ship in the fleet opened fire simultaneously. Coordinated through the artifact network, their weapons struck with precision that overwhelmed Corvani point defenses. Energy beams and missiles converged on the flagship from dozens of angles, but Prince Duran was ready for them. His ship shields absorbed the damage while return fire scattered the human formation. 3 destroyers were vaporized instantly. The flagship continued its approach toward Earth. With weapons powering up for the killing blow, Amy led her fighters through the chaos. With Danny's boarding craft protected in the center of the formation, the Heart Network guided them past enemy fire with supernatural skill. But they were still vastly outnumbered and outgunned. Fighters fell around them as they fought toward their target. Danny felt each loss through the network connection. These people were dying to give him a chance to save their world. The weight of their sacrifice was almost unbearable. But he pushed forward, because that was what humans did when everything they loved was threatened. The boarding craft reached the flagship HULL, just as Amy's last escort fighter was destroyed. Danny was alone now, with only his tools and a fragment of the heart to guide him. He cut through the alien metal and entered the enemy ship while battle raged around him in the void. The heart pulse grew stronger as he moved deeper into the vessel. He could feel the crystalline matrices built into the ship's structure. They were ancient and powerful, but they had been dormant for generations. No one alive remembered how to use them properly. But Danny was not Corvani. He was human, and he carried part of an artifact that had touched thousands of minds with love and hope. As he placed the heart fragment against the ship matrix, something wonderful happened. The entire vessel began to sing with harmonious energy. The song spread through every deck and corridor. Corvani crew members stopped what they were doing and listened to something they had never heard before. It was the sound of unity and compassion, and the dreams they had abandoned long ago. Some of them began to weep for the first time in their lives. On the bridge, Prince Daron felt the change in his ship and knew that everything had been lost. His sister had found a way to turn their own technology against them. The heart of unity was spreading through his fleet like wildfire, consuming everything cold and empty and replacing it with warmth. The battle was ending, but the real victory was just beginning. Across space, human and Corvani minds were connecting. For the first time in generations, old enemies were becoming new allies as the artifact showed them what they could build together instead of destroy. Prince Darren stood alone on his bridge as the heart of unity sang through his flagship. Around him, Corvani officers wept openly for the first time in their lives. The artifact had awakened memories and emotions they thought were lost forever. The cold, efficient warriors of the Empire were remembering what it meant to feel compassion. Zara felt her brother's confusion through the network connection. He was fighting against the influence of the heart, but losing the battle. 15 years of separation had not destroyed the love they once shared as children. Deep beneath his royal conditioning, the boy who had played with his sister still existed. Admiral Jake Morrison watched the impossible transformation spreading through the enemy fleet. Corvani ships were powering down their weapons one by one. Some vessels had stopped moving entirely as their crews struggled with newfound emotions. The systematic war machine was collapsing from within, but the victory was not complete. Long-range sensors detected new arrivals at the edge of the solar system. Emperor Kale himself was approaching with the personal guard fleet. These ships carried the most loyal and heavily conditioned warriors in the Empire. They would not be swayed by the heart as easily as regular troops. Dr. Lisa Park analyzed the incoming fleet composition with growing alarm. The Emperor had brought planet killers and reality weapons that could destroy entire star systems. If he decided that his children were both lost, he might choose to eliminate the problem completely. Earth could be erased from existence in moments. Through the heart network, thousands of minds shared the same terrible realization. They had won the battle, but the war was about to escalate beyond all reason. The Emperor would not allow his authority to be challenged by alien artifacts and rebellious children. He would destroy everything rather than admit defeat. Danny Foster felt the approaching doom as he worked inside the flagship computer systems. The crystalline matrices were fully active now, spreading the heart signal throughout space. But even unified minds could not stand against the reality-warping weapons of the Imperial Guard. They needed something more powerful than simple unity, Captain. Amy Chen coordinated the defense of Earth with what remained of the human fleet. Her pilots were exhausted, but still ready to fight. The heart connection gave them strength beyond their physical limits, but courage alone would not be enough against the weapons coming toward them. Commander Pete Martinez intercepted communications between the approaching fleet and Prince Duran's ship. The Emperor was demanding an immediate explanation for the breakdown in military discipline. His son was trying to explain the influence of the heart, but the words came out wrong. He sounded weak and confused rather than enlightened. Zara made the decision that would define everything. She opened a direct communication channel to her father's flagship. After 15 years of exile, she would speak to the man who had cast her out. Through the heart network, every human and converted Corvani felt her terror and determination. Emperor Kale appeared on the screen, looking older than she remembered. His face was harder now, with lines carved by years of absolute power. Behind him stood the Imperial Guard in their ceremonial armor. These warriors had never known defeat or doubt in their entire lives. The Emperor spoke first, with voice cold as space itself. He offered her one final chance to return home and take her place as heir to the Empire. All she had to do was abandon these inferior humans and help complete their destruction. The galaxy had no room for species that refused to submit to Corvani rule. But Zara had learned too much during her exile to accept that offer. She spoke about the friends who had welcomed her without knowing her true identity. She described the humans who risked their lives for strangers and cared for children who were not their blood. She tried to show him what she had discovered about the meaning of family. The Emperor listened with growing impatience. He had not come to debate philosophy with his wayward daughter. The Empire required order and discipline. Emotions were weakness that led to chaos and defeat. If she would not return willingly, then she would be destroyed, along with her adopted world. Through the heart connection, Danny felt Zara's desperate plan forming. She was going to try something that had never been attempted before. The artifact could connect willing minds across any distance. But what if it could force a connection with someone who was actively resisting? What if she could make her father feel what she had learned? The risk was enormous. Forcing a mental link could destroy both participants. The Emperor's mind was heavily shielded and conditioned against outside influence. But beneath all that, Harmer was still the man who had once loved his daughter enough to teach her about the stars. Jake understood what she intended and tried to stop her through the network, but Zara was already committed to the attempt. She focused all her will through the heart of unity and reached across space toward her father's ship. The artifact pulsed with power that made reality itself tremble. Emperor Kale felt the mental assault like physical pain. His psychic defenses activated automatically, trying to repel the intrusion. But the heart was not attacking him with force. It was showing him memories of his daughter's life among humans. He saw her working in Danny's garage and laughing at simple jokes. The visions continued despite his resistance. He watched Zara learn about friendship and love and sacrifice. He felt her pain when she remembered the burning Helene world. He experienced her joy when humans accepted her as family, despite her alien nature. Slowly, his defenses began to crack. Under the weight of genuine emotion, Lisa monitored the psychic battle through her instruments, while praying that Zara would survive the attempt. The power levels were off every scale she had ever seen. The heart was drawing energy from sources that should not have existed. Space itself seemed to bend around the artifact as it forced two minds together. Prince Daron felt his father's shields weakening and made his own choice. he added his will to his sister's assault. Through the Heart Network, he shared his own memories of their childhood before the Empire had hardened their hearts. Together, the royal siblings reached toward the man who had taught them to rule. The breakthrough came suddenly and completely. Emperor Kale's mental barriers collapsed as 15 years of suppressed love flooded through him. He felt his daughter's exile and loneliness and slow healing among the humans. He experienced her determination to protect the people who had shown her kindness when her own family cast her out. But more than that, he felt the heart of unity itself and what it represented. The artifact showed him the true history of his people before they became conquerors. The Corvani had once been builders and artists and dreamers. They had explored the galaxy seeking knowledge and friendship rather than dominance. The Emperor wept as he realized what his empire had become. Generation after generation had grown colder and more isolated until they could only relate to other species through violence. They had lost everything that made life worth living in pursuit of meaningless power. Through the heart connection he felt the minds of humans and reformed Corvani alike. These people were not inferior or weak. They were everything his own species had forgotten how to be. They cared for each other without expectation of reward. They built beauty instead of destroying it. The Imperial Guard fleet stopped its advance as the Emperor broadcast new orders. All weapons were to be powered down immediately. The planet Earth was under royal protection. Any officer who harmed humans would face execution for treason against the crown. The war was over by imperial decree. Danny emerged from the flagship computer systems to find Corvani crew members helping him repair damage from the battle. Former enemies worked side by side with growing understanding. The Heart Network had shown them that cooperation produced better results than competition. Amy led the combined human and Corvani fleets in patrol formation around Earth. The planet was safe now, but there were other worlds that needed protection. The galaxy was full of species that lived in fear of the Empire. It was time to show them that change was possible. Jake stood with Zara on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the reconstruction begin. Ships that had been built for war were being converted for exploration and trade. The heart of unity pulsed gently in its case, no longer needed as a weapon, but treasured as a symbol of what different peoples could accomplish together. The Emperor arrived on Earth 1 month later to sign the treaty that would reshape the galaxy. He met with human leaders and formally apologized for the centuries of Corvani aggression. The Empire would become a federation, where every species had equal voice in their own destiny. Zara was offered the throne, but she declined in favor of something better. She would serve as the first ambassador between humans and Corvani, working to build understanding that could never be broken by fear or prejudice. Danny would help her as chief engineer of the new exploration fleet. The final scene showed them working together in the engine room of their ship. They were heading toward the Helene homeworld to begin the work of restoration. The extinct species could not be brought back, but their world could bloom again as a memorial to the cost of hatred. Through the viewing port, they could see Earth growing smaller behind them. The blue world that had taught an alien princess about love was now teaching the galaxy about unity. Humanity had given the universe its greatest gift by showing that some bonds were stronger than blood and some weapons were forged from hope instead of hate. The heart of unity pulsed one final time as the ship jumped to hyperspace. Somewhere among the stars, other species waited to learn that they were not alone in the darkness. The age of conquest was ending, and the age of cooperation had begun.